Greetings! Athas and Dracovin, your Lord and Emperor here at the Dracovin Empire, and welcome one and all to all of you out there, whether you're joining me over on YouTube or Twitch or wherever. Thank you for joining me today. We're diving into Dark Sun once more. And we've talked about it here and there, going over some of the basic information about it. We've been talking about the locations, and we've got another one, Gulg, another one that's city-states to talk about today. But again, if you're joining me on Twitch, you're going to be over there, so say hi everybody on Twitch if you want to, or just kind of hang out. Or if you're joining me on YouTube, for you YouTube people there, remember, I need you to appease that algorithm. You're going to be watching me over there, so like, subscribe, ring the bell, and of course, comment. And my comment today is, have any of you encountered or played around with Gulg? It is a unique city-state, as it's the forest city. But yes, why don't we dive into all of it today? We're all here, we're all ready, and of course I'll talk about my main source for this information, which is a favorite one of mine. I definitely have to scream and shout out for everyone to check out. It is the 4th edition D&D Dark Sun Campaign Settings Book. 4E D&D reintroduced us to Dark Sun, improved it, updated it a lot. I would really recommend, if you want to check out Dark Sun, now is the time to do it, because 4th edition works with a virtual tabletop. It's really made for one of those. We are in the era of virtual tabletops, as we're recording this video, probably in the future. So, hey, now's a great time to try out Dark Sun and get a 4E version of it. So, why don't we, though, dive into our topic for today, the city-state of Gulg. The forest city, as it's called. And this is a picture of it, a map of it, if you will. And you notice that it is a very interesting city, as there isn't a lot of major things here. So, in a way, your average Sorcerer King claims, or at one point had claimed, to be a god upon Athas. In this city here, Gulg. This assertion is not made by their Sorcerer Queen, but by its residents. If you ask a Gulgan, they will tell you that Lalati Puya, the Queen of Gulg, is an incarnation of Oba, the forest goddess, the mother of trees and beasts, and dozens of more epitaphs besides that. And this declaration is not an empty platitude. It's not made to avert the eyes of her Templars. The people here sincerely believe that she is divine. That's a really important thing to note here, that they do definitely believe that. Gulg, if we can define it as a city, is a very loose one. It's actually a cluster of these small forest villages that are enclosed by a single wall. Each of those little dark areas on this map that I'm not showing here, each of them is one of those forest villages. We can talk about a couple of them being bigger. There's a green area, there's the center of it, there's a lot of little details in the city. Our average little place there is these little tiny village areas. There are buildings made of thatch and mud and brown, and the roads that are a little more than trampled earth, that are worn down by generations. So what it is these small little village areas that are all clustered around each other are small communities called Dagadas. And these comprise between 10 to 50 huts. Different sizes then. A Dagada is enclosed by a mud wall or wooden fence and is built around one or more wells shared by the residents of that. Lalali Puya. God, I put her in. Lalali Puya is the absolute monarch in the purest sense. The prosperity of Gulg is hers, all the property in Gulg is hers, and she holds the ultimate power of life or death in the citizens, from the greatest warriors that she has, the Judaga, to the lowest slave. And that's where we get to some at a glance when we look at the city, just a little bit here. So, Gulg is the smallest of the city-states. Its population is approximately 13,000 people. That's it. And that's within the walls Plus, there's a small number of outlying Dagadas that are outside the walls in the nearby forest and plains. Nearly all Gulgans are humans. There are some elves and dwarves and moles as the very large minorities, and there is a small Thrykean community that's counted among their Judagas. They're warriors. Water. Each Dagada has a well, and Oba maintains cisterns throughout the city for the use of the residents, and by law, all Gulgans are entitled to the water. Remember, Oba is another term for their queen, and the goddess term. With that in mind, I'm going to interchange them a little bit, occasionally. These cisterns are not well guarded. There's actually fear of terrible curses that those would that try to mess with steal water, so no one really messes with it. Now, if you were to be a member of the people here and look for something to buy, simple stone and bone tools and weapons are easy. Anything beyond that, it's very difficult, nearly impossible to find here. And the problem is due to these places' actual relatively primitive culture. And combining that with draconian trade laws means that a lot of goods don't get to the people here. It's an isolationist community that is set about by their Sorcerer Queen. There are heavy restrictions on trade with the outside world. If you're a merchant from outside the walls, you can only trade directly with the city-state or other traders. Buying from and selling from individual citizens is forbidden. Non-residents can buy and sell goods from merchant house emporiums at the Queen's Gate, but except for House Inika, only few maintain some stock in Gulg. Now, Lalipuya can count on the devoted service of about 2,000 Judagas, warriors. We'll talk about them a little bit more in detail in a second, to meet any threat here that Gulg would encounter. And in a dire emergency, thousands of militia could be raised from the Dagadas. Basically, all young adults in the city have some familiarity with the spear and bow. If you are traveling here, outsiders, you usually settle for merchant lodges, or the travelers, Dagadas, outside the city if you want to stay somewhere. Within Gulg, most Dagadas have a few empty guest huts, but such accommodations are rarely available unless travelers are known and trusted by the god. So, if you've already earned yourself in, you can use it, but you have to earn yourself in. The Dagada, as we've talked about, is the core of the society here. It is a physical village, it's a collection of inhabitants, it's both of those things. Most are a cross-section of Gulgan culture, hunters, artisans, slaves that all identify themselves Dagada first, and city-state second. And layered across this entire thing is a second set of divisions known as the peoples. A people is a unit that's somewhere between a Dagada and members of an extended family. Many Dagadas are composed of members of one or two different peoples, basically extended families. Some actually would have dozens of citizens from many different peoples. Some are very mixing pots. Each of these peoples has their own Dagafart, an ancestral lodge or shrine built in the branches of an Agafart tree, where the elders will gather and discuss important matters related to their people. Now, yes, there are three main groups we can talk about that are backgrounds that relate to classes, and talking about them are very important jobs. Seers, paper wasps, and Jagadas. Paper wasps are members of the Paper Nest, a society of advisors in confidence to the Sorcerer Queen. And they take their name from the pulpy nest of wasps group members create paper from. And then the Jagadas, which are headhunters, exceptional warriors in the community. And they are basically the noble classes of the Dagadas. So they have a little bit more freedom, luxury, and all one of them have the Forest Walk, where they encounter forest spirits and are deprived of food and water for some time, and learn on your shoulder. Alright. Let's start by talking about some of the power structure, by, of course, talking about the Sorceress Queen herself. There you go, in all of her majesty, Lalipuya. Now she maintains a massive stranglehold on the political structure in the city. She handpicks a circle of advisors and works with them to govern state affairs. Her Templars are known as the dreaded Nganga, remain apart from the citizenry, vigilantly guarding the Gulg from both threats that are external and internal. She has a totalitarian rule, but known as Oba, she is beloved by her people for 3 main reasons. Maybe totalitarian, but still loved. First, all citizens of Gulg are entitled to the fruits of the city. Grains from the very few farms, produce from the forest, meat from the Dagadas herds, the herd of animals, are all distributed to citizens pretty equally. Second, every citizen in Gulg has the right to appeal to the Queen directly. And in any dispute, a Gulgan can request an audience with Oba to resolve the issue. Now, sometimes you may have to wait months or years for an audience, depending on the situation and things like that, but every request is eventually heard. And the third thing of all, of course, is the personal power of Lalali Puya, as seen as Gulg's chief defense against larger cities, especially Nibenya, its bitter rival, which has been known to attack it very often, or try to attack it, get into rivalry with it. So, yeah, turns out threats from other city-states and their rivalry kind of makes that, having a powerful Sorcerer's Queen in charge a positive, regardless of how she treats it. Now we have to talk about the other members of the power structure here in Gulg. And we can start, of course, with Judagas. Because there isn't any landed nobility, like most other city-states have. Because agriculture is there, but in small supply. So owning property really is the sign of wealth. Instead, this noble class is a meritocracy of hunters. Judagas. They are privileged warriors, and they are the heart of the army. And although Gulg does rarely go to open war, it means headhunter. Because they're hunters that are in practice take the heads of their enemies as trophies. The Templars of Gulg know a special ritual, the Nganga, that can trap the soul of a deceased warrior in its own skull. And so the Gadas of the greatest hunters are adorned with these undead guardians that are basically the heads of their foes that now have their souls put into them. Yep. Judagas have no land, no titles to pass on to their descendants, but they compete fiercely for trophies and rich spoils, buy wives, slaves, livestock, houses full of luxuries that their families can actually enjoy for generations. A prominent Judagas family remains wealthy and influential long after the individual's death, and young hunters descended from renowned Judagas are likely to become Judagas themselves. They have a step up in the process to become one. It's not necessarily a given, but again, yeah, if you are very successful, your family for generations would have some bonus. So it's a very interesting, this warrior class, which is very important. Now we have to look at Nagana. I've talked about them a little bit. The Templars. Because they aren't like Templars of other city-states. I've talked about other city-states and their Templars, because they're not judges, priests, or members of the City Watch like in a lot of other places. No. They're witch doctors. The Nagana are mystics who lurk on the edges of society and protect Gulg from magical, spiritual, and mortal threats. Lalali Puya. Her grim Templars are seldom seen walking streets. They have indications of their presence that are only in the aftermath seen. A dissenter's family might vanish in the night, evidence only with footprints and a trail of blood leading to the forest. So, yeah. They're also apart from Gulgan society. When one becomes a Nganga, the Gulgan is no longer a member of her people or Dagada. And a Dagada will hold a funeral for this chosen Ngana, acting as though this person has died. And thereafter, they never venture into public without covering their face with a fearsome wooden mask, or with paint suggestive of the skull, Pillops, or some other terrifying monster. Then we have to talk about another group, which is very important here, the Queen's Scribes. Of course. Because I talked about them a little bit, just at the beginning when I mentioned the background of the paper wasps. The scribes are very important, because the Templars are removed from ordinary affairs. And you need someone to administer the city, and the scribes who attend Oba and her palace are those. They come to the job for many different Dagadas and peoples. High-ranking scribes wield authority similar to those enjoyed by senior Templars in other city-states. Magical and mortal duties of the Naganga and the day-to-day governmental concerns of the scribes very rarely overlap. So it's a very rare thing that the two of them ever do something together. Now, one other thing I will mention here is something that relates to a number of members of these groups here. And it's an important one to talk about. Because many other Sorcerer Kings basically maintain that primal magic is a sham. They dislike it, they get rid of it. Alali Hui teaches her people that the primal spirits of the Crescent Forest are real, and they hate the residents of Gulg. According to them, they're embodiments of pure evil, and only the might of the Queen and her Templars hold them at bay. Because primal magic is best means in which to coerce or control these vicious spirits, many of Gulg's Templars are shamans and druids who basically enslave the spirits to serving them. And so there are primal practitioners that don't subscribe to the Queen's teaching, but they should keep their reservations to themselves. But yes, primal magic is a thing in the city. So keep that in mind. Let's start talking about the city itself, because we should mention different things about the city. And here's a map with some, pointing out some places here, and kind of giving you an idea of the different regions, which we'll kind of talk about here. This is Gulg. And if you're traveling from anywhere to Gulg, you follow Whinstone Tradeway from Alaturuk along the northern arm of the estuary of the Fort Tongue. And at the eaves of the Crescent Forest, the stone road gives way to a hard-packed dirt causeway called the People's Road. And in the center of a large clearing inside the borders of the forest, is, of course, Gulg. And it doesn't have earth, stone, or wood fencing. No. They have a tightly woven hedge of razor-sharp brambles that's about 20 feet high. Mopku. Guards in woven grass armor and fearsome animal masks patrol and monitor the gates and provide ingress into the city. And by decree of Oba, all outsiders must enter through the Queen's Gate, which the People's Road leads. The Hunter's Gate is reserved for those Judagas and any warriors in arms, if they are at war. Common citizens and slaves use the People's Gates, and there is a fourth gate, the Exile Gate, which is used to banish the banishment of criminals. It is only opened in the northern wall when a Templar performs a ritual to create a temporary open in the Mopti wall. In addition, if there's a person that wants to leave Gulg, they can actually exit through this gate when it's opened, and no Templar will raise a hand to stop them, but no one can enter the city through the Exile's Gate. So basically, it's like, if you want to abandon the city, if that's a choice you make, you can leave through the Exile's Gate. It is an option when it is open. And, you have an option to leave. Anyway, let's talk a little bit more about the Mopti Wall, just for a second. Because it is important to note that, and talk a little bit about it. It's magical. It's a hedge of sharp thorns that seeks the flesh of anyone that attempts to climb or tunnel through the brambles. And it encloses all of Gulg, and their Dagadas, except for those few outside the city that are used for travelers. And the most elite of the Judagas are the ones that guard the three main gates, and the Exile Gate when it's open. These headhunters also patrol the grounds outside the hedge, just in case people are just wandering around out there. Inside, there's some wood scaffolding that actually allows archers to fire out over the top of the fortification. So it is a fairly well-fortified wall, even though it's just made of brambles. And also, I mean, who knows, just climb through brambles and get like stabbed a billion times. Queen's Gate, as I mentioned, is the first sight a lot of travelers see, but we have to talk about then the travelers' Dagadas, because those are outside the city wall. They're small clusters of thatch huts surrounded by about a 6-foot wall of clay. They are beyond the Mopti wall, and they are allowed to conduct business with outsiders, and most of them making the most likely accommodations for anyone that are coming to Gulg and getting into contact with them. These are outside the bounds of Oba's law, and are popular targets for thieves and swindlers. One of these even has a small elven market. There are a number of known ones, if you want to look into those, too. First. Now, also related to all this is the Queen's Trading House. By the Sorcerer Queen's decree, it's a small, unwalled cluster of merchant house, emporiums, and wooden warehouses that is the only place in Gulg where outsiders can trade, inside the walls. So the visitors can buy and sell among themselves, or of course with the city-state itself. House Inca is the only merchant house that has a significant presence here in Gulg, and deals primarily in luxury items with furs, beads, feathers, spices. And if you're a traveler in need, the trading house is the place you can go to be any kind of vicinity with Gulg and its people. I'll switch over here to the banner of House Inca as we talk about some more things in the city here for a second. So the Dagadas do crowd against one another amid these twisting roads, small dusty squares, animal pens, growing trees. There's no districts other than the Dagadas themselves. And you really can't find your way around if you're an outsider without help from a resident. There are a number of places, though, that you could go to that are big. First off is the Drum Circle. In Golgan superstitions, stories have an innate magic like no others, and storytellers, including minstrels and bards, are respected for their ability to connect with people, to their past, and they're also feared for their ability to twist the story into a dark and powerful end. And behind the earthen walls of the Dagada is known an area known as the Drum Circle, where storytellers, black magicians, poisoners, and other malcontents congregate at night. Sensible folks stay away from the Drum Circle, that they be snatched up by the tails and never seen again. Adventurous types who have the right contacts, it's a good source place for black market implements, poisons, services of ill repute within the city. The Shrieking Skull is a Dagada near the Hunter's Gate, and it's reserved specifically for Judagas that constitute Gulg's nobility. So the highest ranking Judagas get here. The fence is a close set of wooden poles, sharpened at the top, and surrounded by a collection of longhouses that are larger and more ornate than most dwellings in the city-state. It gets its name from the dozens of humanoid skulls that festoon the perimeter. Some are mounted on stakes buried in earth, are hung from the fence with leather thongs, and 2 prominent half-giant skulls cap the wooden poles that support the gate to this place. Each has been taken in battle, and each one of the Judaga's residents, by the residents here, and are magically prepared by the shamans to contain the souls of their former owners. So, it's a, actual screaming boundary of skulls. Yeah. These angry skulls guard the Screaming Skull of Dagada against anyone that tries to enter without permission. The Field of Spears! There's no arena here. Instead, there's a place called the Field of Spears. It's an open area near the center of the city-state, where warriors form a wide ring around the combatants that are fighting each other, the gladiators, to keep them from fleeing, while spectators clamber onto walls and roof for a better view. Gulgans favor one-to-one battle, pitting 2 warriors against each other, or a lone combatant against a savage beast of the forests. It's common for Judagas to enter the field to display his or her martial prowess. Additional prisoners are executed in the Field of Spears, and slaves occasionally fight to the death for the amusement of the crowd. So, yeah, got a little selection of stuff there. Let's talk about the dwellings of our good lady, Queen Lalali Puya. Because at the heart of Gulg, visible to every Tagada in the city, is Sunlight Home, the dwelling of Lalai Puya, a small wooden palace that rests in the highest branches of a Agafart tree that has been grown to titanic size to the Queen's magic. Few Golgans ever see the inside of here, except those who request an audience with the Oba. But Lalali Puya makes frequent addresses to her on her balcony. She makes an appearance to the people in crowds, where the roads are filled with people and clamoring to see and cheer their goddess as she makes her words. Naganga make their huts in the lower branches of this tree, shaded by the massive limbs that support the Sunlight Home. While the Queen's palace is bright and beautiful, the Templars' huts are foreboding and grim, decorated with ghoulish embodiments, bones, desecrated trophies, barely visible guardian spirits, and the like. So common folk of joy avoid as much looking at these huts as they pass underneath. And even the Judagas tread lightly when their business requires them to visit one of them. You know, it's like, oh, we're just gonna get in here very nicely. Yeah, we got our business done. Great, I'm gonna leave now. There's one more place to talk about. One place that wasn't on that map there. The Bone Village. Because the Bone Village is not in Gulg proper. It's still part of its city-state's control. Because deep in the Crescent Forest, beyond the site of the Moppy Wall, is the Bone Village. A profane grove of Lalali Puya's personal mystic laboratory, where she carries out ghastly rituals to expand her power and punish her enemies. As a place of execution since the time of the earliest Gulgan tribes. Ancient druids worked rituals here that bound the souls of the slain into the earth. As long as their bones remain within the grove, the tormented souls linger, unable to pass into their final fate. And few aside from Oba have seen the Bone Village. And whispered tales say that angry ghosts and bound spirits destroy anyone that ventures here without the Queen's blessing. Yeah. Really, really nice place and nice people here. Just say very, very wonderful people. But that's cool. Honestly speaking, it's very interesting to talk about Gulg because it is a very small city-state, but it is a city-state. But it's one that's very different than a lot of the others. Yes, each city-state is very unique, different, they have different ways of doing things, very certain. But a lot of them have some similarities between them. Tyr, Balak, Draj, Nibene, Ram, they all have some other similarities in comparison. This is a place in the middle of a forest with basically primitive tribespeople controlled by religion. Granted, there isn't a lot of technology throughout the world of Athas. Athas is a apocalyptic world of deserts. But it is a forest. A place of water, trees, of life. A forest that is controlled by someone worshipped as a goddess. And the fact is, it's so ingrained in the people that no one would question it. She doesn't have to do anything. Their Sorcerer Queen does not have to do anything to have them continue their worship of her. Just like her power occasionally, give some things, give some judgments, ensure resources are passed out to everyone. That's all she has to do, and they worship her. Sure, it's totalitarian. It really is. But people make do in this weird place. And certainly speaking, it's similar to a lot of other places in Athas. Granted, there is some differences. The connections to primal magic. Her Templars, the Nganga, are mostly primal practitioners. Not all of them, but plenty of them are, using primal magic in the forest. Her nobility is a warrior class. There are some unique things that make it a place that you can understand why it's a fearsome place with a smaller population that would not be easily invaded or conquered. It is a strength that makes it a dangerous place to go against if you should anger the entire city. But again, unlike a lot of other city-states, it's one that is incredibly insular. The fact that very few travelers can even interact with most of the people here. rarely do. You would have to earn some kind of favor with the Sorcerer Queen itself to be accepted as a person, a traveler, an outsider that could even interact with some of these other places. Sure, many of these small villages within a city, Tagadas, might have some guest places, but for you, an outsider, to be in there, you have to earn that with heavy price. Most people, most traders, just come in, trade with themselves, maybe trade with the city directly, and leave. Never dealing with people, except at those traveler Tagadas that are outside the city and really outside the purview of the city to a large degree. You know, they're under the city, but also not. Laws don't apply there the same way. So it's this interesting juxtaposition. I talk about the juxtaposition of the savagery of Athas and the civilizations that have built up at the city-states. And this is another one where you can definitely see there is a massive juxtaposition between the two sides, but it also has a tough choice of understanding. You as a person, you as a character, why would you leave Gulg? Why would you take the steps outside the exile? What is it you seek? Plenty of people can seek their fame and fortune as Judaga. Maybe becoming a scribe, paperless, or something else. Why would you leave this place and walk willingly through the exile and become a lone adventurer in the wilds? Maybe to join up with your group of other characters at some point in time. Plenty of these cities, sure, they have connections with the outside world. It makes sense. Here, it's a harder thing to think. It's an interesting challenge for those people that want to be from Gulg as a character. Not an impossible, but an interesting one nonetheless. I think that's a good place to kind of leave it, the character aspects of Gulg and, you know, connecting to that, because it's a very interesting place, and I hope me talking about it has made you more interested in this, and of course more interested in checking out Dark Sun. I do recommend looking into a lot of places. These places are, it's a dark, gritty, deadly, terrible planet to live on. But it doesn't mean there isn't a chance for heroics, or great adventure, or great villain. Any of those two. If you enjoyed this and want to see more, I do have older videos of 4th edition and also Dark Sun you can go check out. I will do more of these in the future. I do a lot of other tabletop-related videos. If you want to see me do this live up on Twitch, I would recommend you joining me on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, early to mid-afternoon, depending on life stuff going on. Saturday's a backup day if I miss any of those days in particular. I also do live streams of play of Pathfinder 1st Edition, currently, Crimson Queen, and of course a discussion show on Saturdays, discussing Hero Battle. It's 9 p.m. on Wednesdays for Crimson Queen, and 6 p.m. on Saturdays, EST for all those times for discussing Hero. And if you can't join me live on Twitch, go ahead and see all these on YouTube. They all go up there. I also have Discord, Twitter, social media link below, and I think that's about it for my shout-outs for myself, self-promotion. Self-promotion alert! Anyway, you know, check out my social media. It gives mostly schedules and updates, and I talk more on my Discord than I do on Twitter/X or whatever you call it nowadays. Alright, everybody, I'm going to get going. I'll hang around with Twitch a little bit longer after this, of course, but you folks on YouTube, and there's some of you on Twitch that want to get running. I say to all of you out there, I hope you've had a wonderful day, once again, and until the next time we chat about Dark Sun, 4th edition D&D, other types of D&D, anything other else tabletop, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.